You're watching the Rebel Scum Podcast.
You are always scum. Rebel Scum.
From odds making to list rankings, we've got you covered. And don't forget to join us on Patreon for early access and exclusive content. Here are your hosts, Brock and James.
Happy New Year again. This is our first podcast of 2020. It's getting exciting in Star Wars land. This is our first podcast, Brock, but our second video. As you know, we did our ranking Star Wars show on January 1st, as always, 4 years and running now. January 1st, our ranking show, the most uncontroversial video we do all year, because I think our rankings, they are the definitive rankings, Brock. The definitive rankings.
I was telling my colleague Steven at work yesterday about our ranking, and he was like, what was the bottom one? Attack of the Clones? And I'm like, I can't remember, but I used to put it at the bottom of my list, and now this year I put Phantom, and he's like, Phantom's way better than Attack of the Clones.
And
what was our final one? I can't remember.
It was Attack of the Clones, followed by The Last Jedi, followed by I don't know what it was after that, but it was something. It was a lot of fun. You know what? If you guys want to find out what they were, check it out. We did that January 1st. Like I said, it's a lot of fun. That was 37 rankings combined, is what that one was in total. So if you have a problem with what we did, that's great. It wasn't us, so suck it. Because we had very little to do with the influence of those rankings, you and I.
Steve was also like, I think the worst one is the Clone Wars movie. And I'm like, Attack of the Clones? He's like, no, Clone Wars, the movie, like the first episode or whatever it is. And I'm like, that doesn't count. And he's like, sure it does. It's all canon and stuff. And I'm like, that doesn't count.
The problem is it's canon. It was theatrical. So how do you avoid adding that one, Brock? You make it live action theatrical releases. The problem with that, of course, is the Ewoks movies are not a part of it. But like I said, 37 of us. It was us here at the channel, plus our Patreon subscribers, plus a bunch of YouTube and podcasting friends gave their rankings, and we did it all. And I was really hoping for a brand new 1 and 2. But we had a new top 3, which was fun to see. And I'm sure that top 3 will not be top 3 next January 1st when we do it on 2021. I can guarantee you that almost.
Yeah. The numbers aren't going to change either. It's going to be the same amount of movies. So, yeah. It's
going to be the same amount of movies for the next 3 years.
Yeah. So this is going to show the time and time's effect on opinion. So,
yeah,
we
absolutely.
shall see. Because we're, 3 weeks after the release of Rise of Skywalker, and it's still heated debates on the internet, so we're not going to talk about that because who cares?
What a shocker that there's a heated debate.
Money, so your points are moot. But anyways, what are we talking about today?
I don't even know anymore. We're talking about Star Wars. Star Wars. Look, you can't see it on the... Ow, I hit my head. You can't see it on the screen. I got a new Star Wars calendar. It's actually, it's being hidden by... this right here. You can't see Ray. Anyway, Ray is January on the new calendar that I got. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Steve who got it for me. He's like, hey, it's a calendar. Anyway, it's January. We have a new month, new day. Ben Solo is dead and gone. By the way, I saw Marriage Story last night, or whenever the hell you guys are watching this, Friday night with Aaron. Mm-hmm. I watched it with Aaron. Have you seen Marriage Story?
No.
Do you feel like being depressed for 2 hours?
Yeah.
You should check it out. I will say I thought the acting for the most part was spectacular. The writing is Noah Baumbach, so it's great. But I was exhausted. But I slept in today, as you know, and I'm pretty sure that's the reason why. That movie exhausted.
I didn't want to be depressed, and I had already watched The Irishman. Boom.
I haven't seen that yet. It's too long.
In Adam Driver news, I watched The Black Klansman.
Great movie. He's great in that too. But the reason why I bring up Marriage Story is because there's a part where he's with his son. And the whole thing is, it should have been called Custody Battle. But anyway, so he's buying games or toys with his son. And I was like, I wonder if there'll be like a Star Wars toy, because that would, how meta would that be if he's like, you want this Kylo Ren toy? And there's not, but I kept my eye on the screen, and they did have this on the bottom right when he's riding toys. Pictopia Star Wars.
What is that?
It's Pictopia. I've never opened it. Check it out. It's still taped together. I got this like 3 years ago for free. I don't remember how I got it for free.
Is it like Pictionary?
I don't know. I've never opened it. It's trivia. So you're like, which one of these characters nearly falls into the Sarlacc pit? And your options. Oh, and it has pictures. And the options are Lando, Han, Chewie, Luke. And which of these places are planets? And there's Dagobah, Naboo, Tatooine, and Endor. And Endor is a moon. So it's like that. But I've never played it. It's still taped together. I'm waiting for you to come over. So this is The Force Awakens, Clone Wars, and Rebels are all included on this. Cool. Yeah, but anyway, this is on the bottom right of the screen when they buy games. It has nothing to do with the movie. They don't end up buying it. They kind of ignore it, but it's right there. You can clearly see it. And I was like, does he know? I was really hoping his son would play with a Kylo Ren figure. Doesn't happen. Marriage Story was a failure.
On the ranking Star Wars episode
next year's ranking Star Wars is Marriage Story is number 1. Very well acted. Aaron liked it. I was like, this is depressing. I don't know. I think she wanted to watch it, I think, closer to Christmas, and I said, you know what would be good? Not watching it during Christmas. It just, I don't know. It's good. Like, it's just not. I don't know. I'm more in the. Maybe I'm getting older. I'm like, can we just watch a Hallmark Christmas special? Those are way up here. And she's watching one right now with on Netflix. The Night Before Christmas, Brock. The Night. Knight.
Is that the one with Vanessa Hudgens in it?
Yeah, and there's a night. I don't know anything about it, except it's the night. So I'm very excited for her to watch that. And, the next 6 months are going to be her catching up on the Hallmark movies she hasn't watched. And then the 6 months after that will be the new ones that come out because they release them ridiculously early. We're going to talk Ben Solo today. Not Bendemption, because that was a thing. Bendemption occurred. I thought they handled Bendemption well.
What'd you say?
Bendemption. I thought they handled it well in the movie.
Yeah, I think. Well, let's just not call it Bendemption because I believe the Reylos don't believe he was redeemed. But I think the end of his story works. Maybe it's not what we. I'm fine with it because it's like he kind of returned. I kept saying I was surprised. I expected him to stay evil the whole way, and that maybe perhaps I guess I always saw the two of them sort of having to sacrifice themselves for return to the balance of the Force. The ending, the way it ends, I'm happy with that because it's sort of there's like story over, even though she walks into the horizon, it's like story now over. But I think it works because it's sort of. I feel like going after this topic, you just go down into a rabbit hole where you just get stuck, and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I thought he was going to turn, early on in the film. That's what I was believing was going to happen, just because the Emperor was there, and when the Emperor is there, who's the bad guy of the movie, who's the bad guy of the series, and it is the Emperor. And so when he turned, that's kind of when I thought what they did with Harrison Ford was splendid, bringing him back. They obviously didn't have Carrie Fisher to do it. I thought, the use of Maz Kanata was fine. But, it's funny because everybody's like, you don't need Hobbit, Mary from Hobbitville. Yeah. Rose could have said those lines, and while I was watching the movie, I was like, I think Rose could have done the Maz Kanata stuff. But then you hear about what they were doing with Rose, and I guess it makes sense. And I guess you needed to have Maz in there. And by the way, Brock, I've realized, how everybody's like, this movie's a slight on The Last Jedi, and it hates The Last Jedi, and JJ and Rian Johnson hate each other. That whole angle. Yeah. I've realized something. That none of this movie is actually throwing shade at The Last Jedi, with the exception of one moment. They fly now.
That is... I was thinking about that this week, because I was like, Why is no one talking about that scene?
Well, they released that in Good Morning America like a month before the movie, so everybody has seen.
That's true, yeah.
But that is a shade at The Last Jedi and the Maz Kanata jetpack moment.
They fly now?
She flies now. Like,
They fly now.
Maz Kanata is, for me, I don't know. I'm still not. I like, she was way better in this movie, but I'm still like, what's the point of this character?
Right? Well, like, again, I don't think anything needs to change in this movie, but I think there is a valid point. Like, I think everyone did their roles the best they could, but like, we don't need Jana, we don't need Dominic Monaghan's character, we don't need Zori Bliss. Zori Bliss is a very interesting character, and it does open like, oh, let's find out about Poe more. Like, that's fun, but like, they needed Zori to get to Babu Frick. They just needed a entrance into the underworld to get to Babu Frick. Maz Kanata could have done that. I mean, if she's in the Rebel base, then maybe, or the Resistance base, she kind of can't, but you could have put her there.
Oh yeah.
Like, and then between Rose and like, straight up, give it to Billy Lord. She's been there the whole time.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Collins. They can fill in those gaps of Jana, Dominic Monaghan, and like, well, I guess not Zori Bliss, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, Jana's really interesting, but like, her real importance to this movie is to get them the space horses.
Yeah.
And like they got to the planet without her. They could have easily encountered space horses any way you wanted. Like, it's just a minor. Again, I'm not slamming it. It was just like, it's good because the conversation she has with Poe, but then with Finn. But it's just sort of like, hey, we both are the same.
Yeah, there's no payoff to that. It was more to get. I think it's more just to let you know about Finn's upbringing, which 3 movies in, people aren't asking that question. I think is really it. And
you know what? I do want to know more, but I don't feel like, even though she's like, I was a stormtrooper, and I was like, I was a stormtrooper, and it's like, that's it. And I don't think there's any other like vague connection. They just were kids taken away to become First Order stormtroopers. Yeah,
I think there's some in the visual dictionary. There's some reference to her being Lando's daughter, or Lando. You find it is Lando's family was taken. I don't know if it's I haven't read it. Andrew's gonna do a review. I think on this, maybe on this show or the next one. We're gonna throw it to him, Brock.
That's what I was just gonna say. It's like, and then she's there to be at the end with this awkward like interchange between Lando and her. Again, I'm not trying to spread hate. I'm just sort of like, yeah, that's sort of...
obviously. We talked about this. We're not going to dwell on this because I think it's a waste of time. A lot of stuff was cut. A lot of things are cut from movies all the time. The thing is, when you cut something, look, perfect example, and everyone can shut up on the whole topic right now, is if you watch The Goonies, Brock, the movie The Goonies. If you watch the theatrical, the TV version, whatever version, not the DVD version, if you watch it, at the end of the movie, what does Data say? There was an octopus. There's no octopus in the movie unless you watch the new version with the extended deleted scene thing. There's no octopus, but he says the octopus, and you're like, well, I guess it was an octopus at some point that we just didn't see. So it's the same thing with this movie. Things get cut. # release the Donner cut. I'm sticking to it. But anyway, so it happens in all these movies. It always happens. Watch The Goonies. It's a great movie.
But like, it's sad he dies, I suppose, but like, I think it's valuable that his body disappears into the Force the exact same moment that Leia's body.
Yes.
Like, it sort of says to me, they have been reunited. So it's sort of like, you don't see it, but like, all Leia wants from the get in Force Awakens is her son back. And at the end of the movie, she technically gets him back. So there you go.
Okay, so he's not a Force ghost at the end. I think that's irking people a lot. But my whole takeaway, the Ben Solo death is the greatest moment in the Skywalker saga. Because of what we learn even in The Force Awakens. In The Force Awakens, you see Kylo Ren talking to Darth Vader. And he says, "Grandfather, I will finish what you started." But Kylo Ren is not Darth Vader's grandson. Ben Solo is Anakin Skywalker's grandson. And at the end of this, and the whole prequel trilogy is about Anakin Skywalker's obsession with saving his mother and his a wife, a girlfriend, love interest from death. The whole prequel trilogy is about that. And he can't do it. And he has the line to Padme, he's like, love won't save you, only my new powers can. And he's like, ah! But as we find out through Baby Yoda first, love can save you. What it is you have to be willing to sacrifice yourself. The only way to do it is to sacrifice yourself. And what does Ben Solo do? He knows what's going to happen. He knows that when Rey gave up her life to save his, that it took a lot out of her. The only way to do anything about it is to give her his life, and that does that moment in. And hi, Aaron.
Hi.
Aaron just came in, and now my dog's barking. We're having this is an ensemble production right now. But that's so it was Ben Solo finishing what Anakin started.
Yeah.
That's what that moment is.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like, it's perfect. But you got to remember, we're dealing with Star Wars fans here who tend to forget things. They tend to forget what they used to hate and what they used to love. And you know what? I'm all for, and like, this is why we do ranking Star Wars on a yearly basis. You're going to start liking one movie and hating another, or like your opinion of each movie are going to change. But yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And it's like, I think people, when you see that, you're like, oh, I've put that together. It didn't have to be handed to me. Oh, Maz Kanata didn't come in to do some exposition and say, what Anakin tried to do. He brought back his family.
Maybe they should have done that.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, on the same note, I like the fact at the very end of the movie, she sees Luke and Leia as Force ghosts on the horizon, and then she says, I'm a Skywalker. And you're like, oh, what does that mean? It's like, well, it means she didn't have any, like, parental guidance. I mean, when is she left on Jakku? Like 5 or 6? I mean, she remembers her parents, but, you know, I mean, you can debate on if a child attaches themselves truly, but, like, your relationship with your parents tends to evolve. She's left on a desert to fend for herself for, like, a large chunk of her life. And then the two people that actually cared about who she was and tried to nourish her into becoming the person she becomes are Luke and Leia. So it's like, it makes sense to me that that's who she sees. She sees no one else, not Anakin, not Ben, those two people. Because you can say whatever you want about a relationship with Ben, it's tumultuous at best. But Luke is the one who trains her. We don't see it with Leia. I'm sure we would have if Carrie Fisher hadn't passed away. She trains with Leia, and it's just like, I think this movie does give us that little piece of what happens between Jedi and the new series of like just even that 30 seconds of seeing the CG Luke and Leia training after Return of the Jedi. It's like, yes, this is exactly what we wanted. And I'll take that. I'll watch 6 hours of movies just to get that 30 seconds because you're just like, oh yeah, because so she gave up being a Jedi because she saw a vision that like she would have to sacrifice herself and her son at some point. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
And that happens.
That's exactly what we need.
And it happens. And what annoys me is when people complain about it, and it's like, but you praise The Last Jedi when Kylo talks about the Force projection, how it killed, and how later on that plays out. It's the same thing. Like, there's like I say, the insecurities of The Last Jedi are what ruining the Rise of Skywalker, I think. That's what it is. It's like, just chill and like the movies, man. And if you don't like it, don't like it. But if you like it, don't be afraid to like something because it does something a little bit different. And, you know, so I was talking, you know, the holidays obviously came and went. And I was around a lot of people that aren't diehard Star Wars fans. But they all saw this movie because it's Star Wars. And they all went. And I spoke to a few of them. One of them was my sister, who, after The Force Awakens, was so excited about Rey. She loved Rey. She loved that there was this new female Jedi, because she didn't have that growing up, right? So she was like, "Oh my god, it was so cool! Like, see a kick-ass woman." I'm like, "Yeah, I never got that from it because I'm a dude. I'm not wired that way. Like, I've seen it my whole life, right? Like, I've been able to identify with it, and she never did. So like, that's cool. Last Jedi, she was like, This one, I was like, so. She was talking to me about it, and she loved that Rey was a Palpatine. She loved it because there's a moment in it where is it the Emperor or Kylo's like, the power of Palpatine flows through her. And she's like, at that point, it's like, she's like, well, that sucked. But then she said, but the point of Rey's whole drive there is that it's not the Palpatine power flowing through her. It's her own power that's flowing through her. Palpatine has all the Sith. She has the power to get all of the Jedi. She overcomes, the man beating her down in her life and becomes and stands up for herself. And I was like, that's cool. So she really liked that. The other thing that was throwing me for a loop was so many people still think Rey and Kylo are cousins. And then when I say a few, I mean like a lot. And it was weird. I was like, what about the kiss? They're like, oh, they forgot about the kiss. Like they just flat out forgot that they kissed, which I thought was strange. But people remember what they remember and they don't remember what they don't remember, and that's just how it is. And also, and then I said something like, yeah, well, Luke and Leia kissed. Like, so I mean, I look, I think obviously, I think they flat out kind of tell you what's up with them in that movie, but I still, and I know, and I don't want to get anybody upset. I just think that the way that their relationship was portrayed through the 3 movies was not, it was a little bit, it wasn't over the top, which is fine, but I think also a lot of people didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And I know, we talk with a lot of our friends who are in the Reylo side of things, so we obviously saw that and we knew it was a possibility, but I just think a lot of people don't expect that. And they don't see it and they're like, oh, or they forget it and they're like, well, they're still cousins. That's why she's Rey Skywalker, because she was Luke's daughter.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, I just don't feel like it, I don't know. It's almost like it needed, she says she wanted to take his hand, which I think was a moment where you're like, okay, there, she loves it. Like, they love each other. There's something more to just being a dyad in the Force, but just the reaction from the casual fans I spoke to over the holidays, and these aren't just like one group here, it was like several different instances where I spoke to people and they were all not on board with it, and they were like, a lot of them were just like well, at least one person in each of like the 3 or 4 groups of people I spoke to was like, oh, they're cousins. But I think because when you went into it, that's what you thought they were going to be. Like, a lot of people just thought that, and the movie never really says, never says they're not cousins, except for the fact that she's a Palpatine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you know what somebody said to me? But didn't Palpatine create Anakin? And I was like, oh god, this will never end.
Well, here's the thing too. It's like this whole diadem thing. I think we're looking at it a little too closely. I think it's not a matter of like who their family is. I think it's that they represent the dark side and the light side. I know, but and that redeems himself at the end. But technically, he's the villain, and she's the hero, and we're always talking about the balance of the Force. But to get to true balance, it's kind of, there has to be, you kind of get a hint of it in Last Jedi, where you see that logo in the Jedi cave where it looks like a yin-yang symbol. And I think that's what Ryan was trying to get at a little bit. I think his idea was a little different from what JJ inevitably did. But it's sort of like, they're a diadem, they need each other, and Rey can't vanquish the Emperor until he shows up. Right, and it's sort of, even though he's technically good at the same time, like it's almost like they have to. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. It's just that it's sort of the fact that they represent the sides of the Force. They're coming together. Like a diadem is like. Let's look that up. What is the actual definition of? I think of it as like, isn't it like a crown or something? Like, but what is the actual definition of diadem?
Well, you look that
Let's
up.
Look it up. Please hold diadem meeting.
I love the Ben Solo. See, and this is the other thing. See, ever referred to as Ben Solo, like in this movie? Because the thing we learned from Solo, a Star Wars story, is that last name Solo was just given to him by an Imperial. So it really has no bearing on Han at all. Han's just like, yeah, it's just Han Solo. It's just what they call me. So I think that's part of the reason people are upset that she doesn't take the last name Solo. It's like, well, for me, like, what you said about Skywalker, I'm okay with the Skywalker last name. I think it makes sense. I think what you said makes sense. But if she was going to take a name based on anything, you'd think it would be like Organa or something. Like, because if she's trained by Leia and Leia's like her mother, I think she would go with Organa just because I feel like that's more of what Leia is. Leia was raised by them. She is an Organa. You know what I mean? Like, she's not...
Like, Luke trains her as well. Like...
No, I agree with what you're saying. I'm just saying for people who think she should have taken the name Solo, I think Solo was given to him by an Imperial. I don't think he really would have cared if anyone took that last name. So for me, I think Organa really, if you're going to argue any of them, would have been the name that she most likely would have taken. But Skywalker makes sense. And the thing people forget about, I think the key to understanding Star Wars, Brock, and the key to not being so pissed off over every single little thing that you hear is that Star Wars is ultimately a story about this family of Skywalker, says George Lucas. And it is a soap opera. It is familial. That's what it's about. It's not about, and this is the thing when everyone's like, oh, I liked it better when Rey was a nobody. And remember when I said Rey's going to end up being a Palpatine like a week before the movie too? Because when you think about what these movies are, they're not about Broom Boy. Broom Boy is cool, and he could be in the next, but and I like that they showed that aspect of it. Like, there are people out there, but it's not these movies. The containment of these movies that we're watching is not about that. It is about these characters. Even The Last Jedi, spoilers, securities, is about the Skywalkers. And it's about Rey. And it's about that storyline. You know what I mean? Like, it acknowledges the rest, but it's about that, and that's what we go in to watch. We go in to watch the storyline about this family, the soap opera that is the Skywalker drama. And that's what we want to see. And you can complain and bitch and moan about her being not a nobody, but she still is a nobody because she didn't know she was a Palpatine until the bitter end of it all. And that's what it's about, though. It's about this bloodline that is corrupting the galaxy.
Yeah.
That was so mucked up that it took the bloodline of every Sith ever to save the day. And the dyad was created because of the rift in the Force that was caused when Anakin killed the Emperor. I think. Because I think Anakin balances the Force with dark side, light side, right? 2 and 2. And then he kills the Emperor, and then he's gone, and what do we have left? Only Jedi, and then the Force is not balanced. Whatever. Who knows? But
like, taking my thought on the diadem, like, yeah, she's the good guy. So you're like, she's the Jedi, but you're right. She is the blood of the remaining Sith. So it's sort of like she's kind of both, right? Yeah. She herself is almost the diadem. She just chooses to be good, but she has the past of evil. Like, she's the polar opposite of Luke, Leia, and Ben, where they came from good turned bad, and she just came from bad. But it's funny that, like, because I don't want to talk about the Chosen One per se, but I think one of my things coming from this movie is, like, it's funny that the Emperor's undoing is because he kills all the Jedi who are then one with the Force and are able to help Rey vanquish him. So it's like these characters. Yeah, you know what? It's just, it's almost like these new characters we've been introduced to, they don't really, they matter, but they kind of don't, because it ends up being the original players that finish the day off, but they channel themselves through Rey and through Ben Solo, I suppose. And that whole thing for me that stems from The Force Awakens putting all the importance on Luke. Like, I don't know, maybe it was just you and me, but I was okay with a new movie being about new characters and then them going like this way. You know what I mean? Like, because I still think Disney could have come out and been like, we're making 7, 8, and 9. And 7, 8, and 9 could have been about Rey Doobie-Doo and Finn, the stormtrooper, and Poe, and none of them are, and Poe's backstory could be associated with the rebellion, whatever, and Finn was the next stormtrooper.
But the minute they're like, we have to go find Luke, you're like, well, this is all about Luke, right? So then they could, and then, you know, after 7, they could have been like, by the way, the first 6 movies were the Skywalker saga. The next movies you're going to watch are the Rey saga. I still think they could have done that, no problem. But the minute they put the emphasis on Luke and they were like, this is the Skywalker saga, you're right. The importance of the new characters, save for Rey, really, it doesn't matter. They're inconsequential to pretty much anything, because they're just serving the storyline of what came before. But and that's just the nature of storytelling too. It's like, yeah, because you decided to make this Skywalker saga. If it's not, like I said, if it's not the Skywalker saga, Brock, Rey could be Rey Plutt. And it would be fine because she's separate from that. But the minute they did that, that's when we all should have been like, well, she's a Palpatine. Like, Fantasia predicted it in 2015. He told me, he's like, I think she's a Palpatine. Like, right away. And I was like, you're dumb, Andrew. So I don't know. It just, you're right, though. I wouldn't change the sequel trilogy now, to be honest. Like, there was a point, at one point, I'm like, I think they might have gone one way when they should have gone another, but now I'm happy with the way they went, even though we'll probably never see most of these characters ever again. And I think they have a, you know, their playground is pretty solid with these characters.
Mm-hmm. I think I've said this before. I was like, it should have been less about the original characters, but they should have been like important, you know, like you could have still done a story about like, oh well, the outcome of these 3 rebels that basically only knew war for like the large chunk of their time, or subjugation by the Empire. Yeah, like their story of like, you know, their marriage falls apart and Luke is disillusioned by the Force. Like, that makes sense, because I don't think they know what to do in peacetime, right? But like, you could still have done a story where maybe it all worked out. Like Leia and Han are still together. They could do you could basically do what they do in Bloodline, where like she's in the New Republic, being a senator or whatever she actually was, and Han is out racing swoop bikes or whatever, or pod racing, and then just have Luke like establishing a Jedi Order. But then you bring in these new characters, maybe it's Ben Solo, maybe it's Rey, and you follow them, and like you could still hit all these things. But what am I even bringing this up for? Like, we just got the 3 movies, so just like take them for what they are, and be optimistic, because we live in a post-Mandalorian world now where like they did something that we've been kind of wanting for a while. They tried to do it with Rogue One, and I think they did a pretty successful job. But even in the space of like the 3 or 4 years in between, like Mandalorian changes everything. We can now hypothetically do a show or a movie that doesn't have to do anything with the Skywalkers, and will be successful. Well, is Mandalorian ever going to relate back to that stuff? Of course it is. Of course it is. Don't be stupid. But anyway,
I think they all can still. I think it'll be stupid of Lucasfilm and Disney to never acknowledge what we just saw in any of their other Star Wars franchises, because at the end of the day, like I said, man, you could have ended the Skywalker saga with Return of the Jedi, which is, you know, really when it kind of ends, and then you could have said again, and you just pick up the pieces from where you left off. And you know, if Luke played the Han role in Force Awakens and the importance isn't on Luke, and then you strike Luke down and Luke just helps out Rey, all of a sudden you start to go. But anyway, who cares? I like, you know what, I think after Rise of Skywalker, I just watched Last Jedi Friday. I watched it Friday, and I like it. I watched it in October, and I liked it a lot or October. I don't remember when. I watched it a lot though, and then I watched it again, and I like it more and more each time I watch it. And now I like what we learned from the Rise of Skywalker. I personally am one of those idiots, Brock, that believes that they work very well together, and I like seeing, like, when Luke throws a lightsaber, like. Sorry, I gotta set Akbar for a second, Brock, because everybody's like, it retcons the Last Jedi. Everybody turns into a Sith Lord when they get mad at it. But people haven't watched The Last Jedi. This is what I'm getting from it with the insecurities of The Last Jedi. What is Luke's arc in The Last Jedi, Brock?
Rey wants him to train, but he's like, I don't do that anymore. You don't understand the Force, and I just whatever. And then she realizes he's cut himself off from the Force, and then as he's teaching her, he learns that like he was wrong and da da da.
Oh, whoa, what? He learns that he was wrong. So when he says he was wrong in the Rise of Skywalker, he's just reiterating what he already told us, what we already know what happened to him in The Last Jedi. But he's letting Rey know that now. He's telling that to Rey. This is like, if you like a movie, pay attention to the movie. Let's go over to Never Tell Me the Odds.
Yep.
Because people are frustrating me, Brock. I don't know. Last Jedi is so good, but you haven't watched it because you haven't learned the purpose of it. That Luke learns from his mistakes, as we should too, and we should learn from the mistakes of hating The Last Jedi right now. All right, Never Tell Me the Odds brought to us by Patreon. Thank you all for all you do, Patreons. 2020 Patreon rankings. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody who participated in our ranking Star Wars with sending in your list. And to those that said, I don't rank them, I will watch. Thank you also for those. I respect your decision to not rank them because it is hard and impossible. And to the 2 people that put in Star Wars as all 11 of them, I use that as a new hope. All right, Brock, who are our Patreons?
Executive producer Heidi Feder, Barry Brophy, Dennis Allen, Christine Allison, Mary Kristen Athen, Jeff Wilson, Aaron Quinton, Al Schuler, Phil Staniforth, Austin Schur, Scott D, Andy Higgins, Josh Price,
Mason Hope, Matt W, Rez, Rural Farm Boy, Frank Perkins, Sooner Thrawn, Neil Lowry, D, Raven Spencer, Matt Dallas, DJ Blake, Gleek Play 1, Janet Rubio, Charlotte, Kayla Davis, Girls with Sabers, and the Den Nerds.
Does Girls with Sabers spell Sabers E-R or R-E?
Hold on. Well, my phone would have autocorrected that, right?
No, not necessarily.
Hold
I
on.
think it's like a British spelling.
Yeah, but my phone, I think, is set to American. I do everything in American, Brock.
Don't get me started about your proper writing on text.
E-R. No, I just let my phone. I used to like double check my spelling, and now I've stopped giving a crap. It's ERS. ERS. They that's the way that's how I spell it. It's not.
Shout out to the links over at GWS.
They're great. They just had a live stream on Thursday night.
Nice.
And they're going to, I don't know if, anyway, they're going to be doing more than just Star Wars in the future. And they're big time Lord of the Rings fans. So I'm excited for some of their Lord of the Rings content.
And they're getting that show on HBO or Amazon?
Amazon. If that happens, we'll see.
If it happens, but man.
I think they just, anyway, yeah, it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. All right, here we go. First odds of 2020, the odds of Ahsoka Tano appearing in The Mandalorian Season 2.
Ooh. I don't know if Season 2, but I would love that. I don't know how you work it out, because, like, where does Rebels fall? It's, like, before New Hope, right?
Yeah.
Right? So...
It's before New Hope. But it ends after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, it's... Oh, yeah, you could make... Like, I mean, anything Ahsoka, give it to us. Like, having Ahsoka's voice in there, great. Ahsoka needs her own show, quite frankly. I want to know.
I think they're
after Rebels. So,
yeah.
But in regards to Mandalorian, I'm gonna go 40% because I don't know how you work it, and I also think you don't need Ahsoka in that show because then that becomes the focus.
Yeah. My only thing with her, I'm gonna go full Brock on it. But my thing with Ahsoka on Mandalorian is just the Baby Yoda angle. Where does Baby Yoda go? And she is from what I can tell, the wisest of them all. She's the Bendu type. She's not a Jedi. She's just light side, you know. And that, you know, that's somewhere where Baby Yoda can go. Because look, at some point they got to figure this Baby Yoda. As cute as Baby Yoda is, as much as we all like Baby Yoda, they need an end game on Baby Yoda. Because if it just ends with "and they lived happily ever after," we're like, what? So, by the way, Baby Yoda spoiler alert for the Mandalorian, but Baby Yoda stopping that fireball.
Oh yeah,
Baby Yoda, do the hand thing.
It's so great, and I am sure you guys talked about this on Mandalorian Scum, but maybe people figured it out earlier, but I love how in the last episode you really get the fact that like his whole drive to help Baby Yoda isn't because he's like, oh, it's a kid and da da da. It's like it's legit because he was saved by a Mandalorian, so therefore a Mandalorian should always look out for people that are in danger, and it's just like that same like him as a child being carried off by the Death Watch, which I didn't figure out till the very, very end. I was like, oh, that is Death Watch.
We actually got a super chat about that, and we're gonna do a whole video on that. Rob's gonna do a video on that.
Yeah. And like, and then he's carrying Baby Yoda the same sort of way. I'm like, yes, this show's great. So yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Ahsoka and Baby Yoda, it'd be great.
I'm gonna go full Brock.
If she came in, and it's like he has to come with me, and then they make a whole series about that, and like Sabine is in it, and then they find Ezra at some point. Oh my god, it just writes itself. I don't know if it wants.
Next on the odds of episode 10 happening in 10 years.
I don't hate it. Funny enough, you're not the first person to say this to me.
And it won't be the last.
I don't know, though, because the title is Episode 9, Attack of the Skywalker, Rise of Skywalker. Star Wars Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. Is that an official title?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know. The crawl says Episode 9. I don't think the title...
They said they're going to do away with it.
Which is another dumb thing. The Skywalker saga put all the Roman numerals in there. Like, why get rid of them now? I don't get it. They just because they don't like the prequels, Brock. That's why.
I think it'll be confusing though if you continue the number and then you do a different storyline. I think people will be confused. They'll be constantly trying to. So I think you do need to get rid of the numbers. I don't. Also, I don't. I think we're split on. Like, I don't refer to it as Episode 9 anymore. Like. I have a title, so I call it that, right?
Yeah.
I don't refer to any of the other movies. I mean, I guess Episode 1, but like, it's not Episode 4, 5, 6. It's New Hope, Empire, and Jedi, right? That's how we shorten it. But I will say I like the idea. 75% that in a decade they return to the storyline. Maybe they'll call it Episode 10. Maybe they do it for the marketing. Where like, 10 years ago, Episode 10. And then they don't tell you the full title for a good 6 months. That I think is a hit on home run for sure. So I'm gonna go 75 on that one.
I'm gonna do another 2020 full Brock. My full Brocks are just I know the Skywalker saga is over, but that doesn't mean, like I said, another saga could kick into high gear, but they could just be like, this is the 10th one, and then Leia's saber plays a part of that, or Anakin's, or something that we learn from this saga plays a part in the next saga. Like again with Marvel, the Infinity Saga is over, but the next saga is just beginning. Yeah. So that's how I view that. Our final odd, the odds of the 2022, 2 years from now, Brock. Actually 3 because it'll be December, but 2 years from now, the 2020 film being about the Old Republic. No, it's an Old Republic. I don't know what voice that was. That's the worst one.
I think it's like a good idea because it's a way to be like, okay, there won't be any connection because it's happening way too far in the past to have any real connection outside of like, this is a Jedi, this is a Sith. I think they should definitely do it, but I don't know if I see it as that. But I would love anything Star Wars. So Old Republic, yay. I'm gonna go 65% because it's sort of like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Is Ryan interested in that? Is Ryan the next director? I don't know.
Well, they're gonna announce it this month. Hopefully not by the time this goes up. Could you imagine? They announce it right now.
Yes, yeah.
What up, Star Wars? Remember that old segment?
What up, Star
Hold on, I'm going
Wars.
to type in Star Wars on my phone. This is why people come here, to hear and to watch us.
Text.
Box office, Rise of Skywalker plummets 58% on Friday. Plummets. Can I just tell you, there are websites that I never acknowledge their existence anymore. We got this covered. I think that's pretty standard. But Forbes is the biggest turd on the planet. Like, Forbes went from, I thought they were genuine, to, first of all, they hate everything Star Wars, and it's all clickbait nonsense. And it started with Solo.
Yeah.
But they haven't hired anyone. That's good news.
Cool.
50-50.
All
Hollow
right.
news? Hollow news. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hollow news.
Hollow news. The nerds news knows now. I don't know why I always do ends. So speaking of how much Rise of Skywalker, when I put the news together, I had this information. It's the early morning estimates for Rise of Skywalker crossing 400 million stateside, with $407.6 million after New Year's Day, adding 17 million for box office. It now beats out the January 1st amount made for Last Jedi, 14.2 million, and Rogue One, 16.75 million, and now ranks 4th among the highest grossing New Year's Day, behind The Force Awakens, Avatar, and Meet the Fockers. So it went from being 2% behind Last Jedi on the Sunday to being 8% behind the first 13 days through. There's a lot of numbers. Anyways, I also looked it up during the show. Wikipedia is saying that, because I wondered if they made their budget. Their production budget was $275 million. And it has grossed 851 million worldwide. So they have made their budget. So the movie is officially a success. It's now just a matter of where does it fall in the top highest grossing. But it's right now it's at the 9th highest growing film, and it could be changing as we speak. I don't know, but there we are. That's the update on it. Clone Wars season 7. On to the Ahsoka mention. It has been officially announced that it will premiere Monday, February 17th. We knew it was coming early 2020 in the February, but now we know for sure. It will be a 12-episode run. And it'll include some of the lost, I forget what it was called, the lost season, the lost tapes or whatever. They will use some of the animations that you saw in the show, but they will definitely have some new stuff. And in our final story, as you know, there is now a movement called #ReleaseTheJJ Cut, trying to work off the whole popularity of #Release the Snyder Cut for Justice League. I would love to see it. But anyways, this is a hot topic, and we're not going to take a stance, but we need to report it. The Rise of Skywalker editor, Marianne Brandon, reveals that there has been a lot of stuff cut out. We do know there's going to be a lot of deleted scenes that are going to be interesting to see when the film is released on digital and Blu-ray. But she said this. It was a kind of delicate balance and went back and forth a lot about how much we wanted to reveal. Some scenes changed quite a bit, the way that we wanted to present it to the audience. In the end, we ended up showing a lot less of it than we started with. There was so much information in the film and so many characters. What we wanted to have it was an audience concentrate, and what we wanted the audience to concentrate on. I think we felt we didn't want to clutter the film up with things you didn't need to know. So just like pointing out that a lot of stuff got cut. So that's, I think J.J. Abrams has announced that the whole Finn reveal to Rey, what he wanted to tell her, like that was supposed to be in the film. He was supposed to tell her, and then it got cut. So it is what it is. They put a lot of stuff into this movie, and unfortunately, it meant cutting a lot of interesting parts. But there you go. And that has been your Hollow News for today.
Hollow News.
Alrighty.
Top 5.
Top 5. What's our top 5 for today, James?
I have no idea. We have
I think it was top 5 Star Wars moments 2010 to 2019.
Yeah, of the decade of what was. We have top 5 Star Wars moments from 2010 to 2020. I know some people consider 2021 the beginning of the decade, but I got to be honest with you. It's 2020. The number one is vanquished, and so I'm considering 2020 my decade. Anyway, it's been 10 years. It's been 8 years since Disney bought Lucasfilm, but my number 5 is the moment. I think it was 2 years ago now, a year ago, almost 2 years ago. We were recording a podcast, I believe, and I was getting ready to go to a soccer game to play soccer because I'm very athletic, Brock, very athletic. And we saw the hashtag Clone Wars saved. They announced that Clone Wars was coming back. That was a cool moment. Fans rejoiced because Disney had ruined Star Wars. And they killed the Clone Wars, and now they acknowledge that, hey, maybe we were wrong.
Before I just say my top 5, honorable mention to Star Wars Celebration. It's just a great time. And they've done 4 or 5 in this decade, so it's just a great time to be about, but there's nothing specific. They just use it as announcements, but it's just a great time to be a Star Wars fan at those places. But my number 5, and it falls in this decade, is the Disney purchase. I think that's a huge deal. I think my list is going to be about more like big milestones and then also like positive sort of things. So Disney purchase, like it's, up until that point, we never expected to see any more Star Wars. I mean, I guess, was Rebels post Disney?
Yep. That was this decade.
So, yeah. So, like, 10 years ago, we had no concept that, like, we would ever get more
Star Wars was done 10 years ago.
It was basically done.
I mean, it was just Clone Wars. Not to discredit Clone Wars, but it was just going to be Clone Wars. No more movies. Theatrically, it was done.
Yeah. So, anyways, it was. It's crazy what's happened, and because of that, like, we now do a podcast about that. So, like, the Disney purchase kind of changed our lives as well.
Yeah, we started this in 3 years ago, 2016. Yeah. Summer 2016. August 3rd, 2016. Park.
Yeah.
That's not on my list, by the way. It should be, because we are the difference makers in Star Wars.
We are.
For me, my number 4 is recent. It was Ian McDiarmid at Star Wars Celebration Chicago. Roll it again, and it was more than just he's back in the movies. It was just, it was nice to see something like that, like because Luke, Han, all them are going to be there, but they surprised everybody, and then his appearance surprised everybody, and the cheering. And you're like, yeah, Star Wars is about these little pieces, and it was nice to see them bring him back. And you know what? Sure, that's a cheap number 4, but I'm going with it.
My number 4 is a little bit emotional. I don't want to get anyone's bile up, but the moment where people banded together to support some of the harassment in the Star Wars, specifically Kelly Marie Tran and Ahmed Best. Ahmed Best was more during the prequels, but he was able to overcome his depression from having Jar Jar Binks being the most hated character. I don't want to focus on characters being hated and then the actors having to deal with that, but fans went out of their way to support them, saying like, this is not right. Just because you don't like the character doesn't mean you have to unload on the people that portray them. And I think it's slightly better, but it's nice to see the positivity. I mean, Ahmed Best is going to be the host of that new Star Wars game show. I'm excited for that. So there you go. I mean, there's always, for every bad thing, there's always a positive to it. So there you go. Number 4.
My number 3, watching that last Jedi trailer at Star Wars Celebration in Orlando. That whole experience was a good time. Rian Johnson coming out to the crowd beforehand at 3 a.m. Little did he know that crowd would turn on him in 6 months. That was a great time, great experience. That was a lot of fun.
I wonder if he regrets going out and talking to people in the lines in Orlando at like 2 a.m. because they're waiting to get in the thing. Probably.
No, I think he genuinely enjoyed every second he was involved in Star Wars.
My number 3 is Rogue One. That movie, I keep saying, I said it earlier, it's like I think it's changed how people can look at a Star Wars movie. Yeah, I know there's Darth Vader's in it, and there's a lot of connections to our original story, but I think it's something that kind of lives on its own, doesn't require a ton of support from something else, and succeeds in being a different type of Star Wars movie, which is where we need to start heading. So I like to put it up there.
My number 2 is the day in October when Disney purchased Lucasfilm. The day they bought it, it was like everything changed. We knew it was all going to be different. We're getting more movies. We're going to get 7, 8, and 9. So, oh man, just remember, like, what are they going to be? When are we going to get them? I can't wait. Now we've got 5 new Star Wars movies. We are, like, literally, they've made one less Star Wars movie than George Lucas made in 30 years. Think about that. Oh, if you count the Clone Wars movie, they made 2 less. But they made one less movie than George Lucas made in 30 years. That was a great day for me.
Yeah. My number 2 is Disney Plus launching. We have Mandalorian. Maybe Mandalorian sort of fits in the same category with Rogue One. But the fact that now we have a place for new Star Wars content to exist. And, I mean, you know, it has to do well. I know there's a little backlash now because I guess Disney Plus took down some stuff that they weren't supposed to take down, or I don't know. And then people are sort of, Mandalorian's done, I don't need it. But, like, we got Star Wars, the potential of the new Star Wars things where a place like Mandalorian might not have been a movie, but it definitely can exist as a show. So the future looks limitless in my opinion.
Yeah, and for me, again, you know, you look at Solo. I love Solo, but that type of story and film, I think, belongs on Disney Plus, and I think they're doing that with Obi-Wan. I mean, Obi-Wan's going to be the test for how that stuff works there. And if Obi-Wan succeeds, maybe we get Solo 2, maybe we get, you know, Cassian Andor. Who the hell knows what's up with that? But you know, if Obi-Wan succeeds, Cassian Andor succeeds, maybe we get more of those shows focusing on characters. And live action Dr. Aphra would be great. My number 1, it is probably, I'm not gonna say it, but my number 1. Force Awakens opening day. I had fun that entire day walking around. You and I, we went to the pop-up shop in Toronto. Then we all got together at my old apartment and we watched Ewoks Caravan of Courage on YouTube. We had a drink beforehand. We went to go see the movie, and just the experience being in the theater for the first time watching the last Star Wars film. We're not going to get that again. I mean, maybe 2022, but that's only 2 years away, 3 years removed from the last one. This was 15 years, and it was after we were told we weren't getting any more. There was just something about that experience. I smiled the entire time. So Force Awakens opening day, my number 1.
You know what? It's a really good number 1, James. It's really nice, and like, even though it's a specific memory to us, I think a lot of people could relate, especially Star Wars fans, to be able to see a new Star Wars movie. But you're wrong. The number 1 moment in the last decade for Star Wars was Baby Yoda. I know the revolutionary moment of Baby Yoda is insane. Like, that is bringing people to watch The Mandalorian just be like, what is this?
That's true.
I don't think, but like, it's insane. Like, I remember watching that first episode and being like, I don't know how I feel about this, and then it didn't matter.
Yeah, it's true. And that's why I feel like the Baby Yoda, if it's not a surprise, it's like, well, how are people going to react to that episode? Especially. And then I was talking to Fantasia at New Year's, and I was like, you know, I think one of my favorite episodes is the egg episode. As much as it's like a throwaway, I just love Baby Yoda using the Force kicking ass. So there's spoilers, but I'm like, I kind of like that episode. Like, I'm like,
no, it's great because it has some fun reveals, but then it's also a fun episode in general.
Yeah,
like,
there was
the Jabba chase and the Sandcrawler chase, like, and it's great on so many levels.
I felt like the 4th and 5th episodes were 2 that I was like, meh, but they were necessary to the plot, and that's what we talked about. I think on you and I talked about that, or we talked about. I can't remember where I talked about it, but I was like, But I think it's gonna be necessary, and then end up being necessary. So, anyway, those are our top 5, our first top 5s of the decade. Let us know what your top 5s are down below. Again, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud. I don't know where else we are, but we're other places as well. This has been the 148th episode of the Rebel Scum Podcast. He's Brock, I'm James, and he was always Scum.
Scum, Rebel Scum.
Hey scumbags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.